Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti. Up next, coming up in the next 1 hour. Sanctions imposed on Mali by the United Nations are set to expire today.
Actions threatens peace and security, not just in Mali, but the entire region.
Gabon junta has named a transitional president amid condemnation from the United Nations. Tropical storm Idalia is moving south after lashing Florida. Final preparations are underway ahead of the G20 Summit here in New Delhi.
We want to showcase modern face of India.
And a major upset at the US Open with Tsitsipas crashing out. Sanctions on Mali are set to expire after Russia vetoed a Security Council draft resolution. It comes amidst reports from the UN that Mali's troops and its foreign security partners are using violence against women and other grave human rights abuses to spread terror.
We are convinced that the adoption by the Council in this, which flouts Mali President Ibrahim Boubacar's desire to get rid of the sanctions regime, will just undermine the sanctions regime and it will not help the Malian peace process. It would just further antagonize the parties.
The US and the UK say that they are deeply regretting Russia's decision, adding that the move threatens peace and security in the entire region.
The Council's failure to agree on the urgent and necessary renewal of Mali's sanctions regime due to Russia's actions threatens peace and security, not just in Mali, but the entire region.
The United Kingdom deeply regrets Russia's reckless use of the veto. This will reduce the Council's oversight and engagement on Mali's peace process at a critical juncture.
The Central African nation of Gabon has named a transitional leader in the wake of Wednesday's coup, with General Brice Oligui Nguema, who formerly served as the head of the Presidential Guard, now claiming power. President Ali Bongo has been put under house arrest, and he sent this message from his residence.
Right now, I'm in the residence and nothing happening. Nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really. I'm thanking you. Thank you.
International bodies are condemning the coup, with the United Nations calling for a peaceful resolution.
All right. The Secretary General is following closely the evolving situation in Gabon. He notes with deep concern the announcement of the election results amid reports of serious infringements of fundamental freedoms. He firmly condemns the ongoing coup attempt as a means to resolve the post-electoral crisis. The Secretary General reaffirms his strong opposition to military coups.
The foreign ministers of the European Union will be meeting in Spain on Thursday to discuss their response to last month's coup in Niger, including possible sanctions, considering the news of military officers declaring they have seized power in Gabon. A major theme of this gathering is instability in the West and Central African countries. Hassoumi Massoudou, Niger's foreign minister, and Omar Touré, the head of the Commission of West Africa's main regional bloc ECOWAS, will attend the talks, while the EU defense ministers will hold a news conference after informal talks in Spain. Prior to this, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell has said that the European Union is moving ahead with the legal groundwork to impose sanctions on members of a junta that seized power in Niger last month. And from the African continent, we now get you updates from the European continent. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for a review of exemptions for military conscription, accusing authorities of a corruption scandal during the process.
Unjustified decisions of the military medical commissions have already been definitely identified by law enforcement authorities. Concrete evidence has been documented. This has been presented in a closed session. Different regions of the country, different territorial military commissariat, different officials. Bribes ranging from $3,000 to $15,000 have been recorded. They will be held accountable.
Meanwhile, Russia says it is continuing its investigation into the death of Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, who died in a plane crash last week. The incident happening exactly 2 months after Prigozhin led an armed insurrection against President Putin. At the same time, Kremlin continuing to deny it had to do anything with the crash. It comes as drone attacks are continuing in both Russia and Ukraine as the war drags on. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow on this.
Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says that a wave of Ukrainian drone attacks against the Russian regions on Wednesday will not go unpunished. The ministry's spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said they prove the terrorist nature of what Moscow describes as Kiev regime. She also added that the drones could not have covered such distances without information from the Western countries. Russian president, according to the Kremlin, is constantly receiving the information about the special military operation in Ukraine, as well as about those attempted attacks against the Russian territory. And the Russian military experts, the Kremlin says, are now studying the trajectory of those drones to see where they were launched from. That's after Ukrainian drones hit an airfield in Russia's northwestern region of Pskov that borders European countries. Russian Ministry of Defense says Moscow carried out a massive strike against Ukrainian military infrastructure with high-precision weapons. They hit Ukraine's command and intelligence centers. All designated targets, according to the ministry, have been destroyed. And the ministry adds that in the Black Sea, east of the Snake Island, Russian fighter jets have destroyed 2 Ukrainian speedboats with the crews on board. Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour, parts of Florida are underwater in the wake of tropical storm Idalia. '80th Venice Film Festival begins with much pomp and show. 23 movies in contention for the Golden Lion. And the celestial treat of rare blue moon sighted in many parts of the globe.
Welcome to Mahabalipuram, a coastal town full of delight, where history, art and natural beauty unite. Explore this sacred ground, where spirituality and divinity are closely bound. Stroll along the sandy shore, where sunsets leave you wanting for more. Wander through the Panchrathas, monuments of might, carved in stone, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Let the rock-cut caves transport you in time, where legends and myths intertwine. Immerse yourself in culture art, where music and dance captivate every heart. So visit Mahabalipuram. Let its magic unfold, where the ancient stories never grow old. Take in the richness of its hue. Let the spirit leave a lasting impression on you. Welcome to Mahabalipuram.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you more international updates. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi held talks with his British counterpart James Cleverly in Beijing. Cleverly is the first senior British minister in 5 years to have visited China. The pair discussed issues surrounding Taiwan, Korea and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The United Kingdom said that it also raised its concerns over China's human rights record. Meanwhile, both sides stressed on the importance of maintaining a pragmatic working relationship and reopening the channels of communication. Andrew Wood is joining us from Hong Kong. Andrew, good morning. Now, we've seen this frank statement wherein Britain's Foreign Secretary says that he, in fact, has raised human rights issues in every single meeting he held in China. At the same time, both the sides have called for a pragmatic relationship between the two countries. Let us get more understanding from you as to how is Britain engaging with China given the timing of the meetings.
It is very difficult for James Cleverly, the UK Foreign Secretary. The government of Britain wants, as you say, to be pragmatic. They feel that it's better to engage China, even if they disagree with so many things, and feel that China might be hostile in some ways to Britain, and I think China feels the same way about the UK as well, that it's better to engage in contact and talk, and in private perhaps have very strenuous arguments with the British side pushing its agenda on human rights onto China. On the other hand, a lot of the powerful senior politicians in the Conservative Party, the governing party in the UK, they accuse the government, James Cleverly, of appeasing China. They say that talking to China in this way is similar to the way that British prime ministers, British politicians talked to Adolf Hitler in the late 1930s, and that they gave in to him, and that although that delayed the war, perhaps it wasn't the right thing to do. And a lot of people, I think, certainly on the right of the party, at the right of the government in the UK, are very, very suspicious of China. They think China is a very big threat. And going back to human rights, they really don't like the way they accuse China of steamrollering over human rights in Hong Kong, of breaking promises to preserve freedoms that Beijing made in the 1990s, that Hong Kong would continue to enjoy a wide range of freedoms after the handover in 1997, and that doesn't seem to have worked out very well.
Andrew, there is this report of the MPs in Britain which talks of how the UK government needs a more coherent and unified approach to deal with China. At the same time, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has also said that he aims to pursue a nuanced and a non-confrontational approach in dealing with China. At the same time, do I ask you that can China take the UK seriously after Brexit?
Well, it's interesting that out of the G7, the group of 7 leaders, so far Rishi Sunak is the only one who hasn't met President Xi Jinping. So, you know, the leaders of Canada, Italy, France, Germany, America and Japan have all met President Xi Jinping. And this is a bit late. To be fair, of course, Rishi Sunak has not been Prime Minister in the UK for very long, relatively speaking. The prize for James Cleverly, the UK Foreign Secretary, would be to arrange a meeting probably next week, probably in India, at on the sidelines of the G20 Summit that India is hosting. That would be good. And then I think we have a better idea of how Britain is going to proceed in its relationship with China. As you say, that report, which was from all parties in the UK, MPs from all parties in Parliament, really criticised Britain a lot for being very incoherent and not having a particularly, needing to unify its approach to China. Don't forget, China, any dealings with China, as I was saying earlier, really are complicated by dealings over Hong Kong. And China feels that Hong Kong is now a domestic issue for China since the handover more than 25 years ago, and that Britain really should stop sticking its nose in.
All right, Andrew, we leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details and that analysis. And from here, we now get US President Joe Biden approving historic military transfer to Taiwan under the Foreign Ministry financing program normally used for sovereign states, according to a notification sent to Congress. The first ever US military transfer is up to $80 million in foreign military financing funds in support of Taiwan. Taiwan's defense ministry thanked the US but did not give any details about this military aid. China has repeatedly complained to the US about military aid and sales to the island. Its defense ministry has said that the US military must stop all forms of military collusion with the island. Getting you updates from the Korean Peninsula now. North Korea fired 2 ballistic missiles into the sea on Wednesday to simulate nuclear strikes on targets across South Korea. State media said the tests had been conducted in reaction to US deployment of B-1B bombers for allied air drills. The launch comes a day before South Korea and the US wrap up 11 days of combined military drills, which Pyongyang has denounced. North Korea's ballistic missiles are banned by United States Security Council resolutions that have imposed strict sanctions on the nuclear-armed country. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre has said on Wednesday that the U.S. condemns North Korea's latest ballistic missile launch as it violates multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions.
As it relates to the missile, we condemn. We've been very clear about this, condemn the DPRK's latest ballistic missile launch. This launch is in violation of multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions and possesses a threat to the DPRK's neighbors and international community. We remain committed to a diplomatic approach to the DPRK and call on DPRK to engage in dialogue, as we have for some time now. Our commitment to the defense of the Republic of Korea, Japan, remains ironclad.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said that Japan has lodged a protest against North Korea after it had fired 2 ballistic missiles on Wednesday night.
The
ballistic missile launched this time is also against a United Nations Security Council resolution, and we strongly condemn them. We have already lodged a protest against North Korea.
All right, to the US now, where an Indian-American presidential candidate is suddenly getting a lot of attention. Tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy has surged into the 3rd place in the polls in the Republican race for the nomination after his performance at the GOP primary debate. DD India correspondent Kate Fisher reports from Washington, D.C. on this.
How does the airplane go?
As a 38-year-old tech entrepreneur, Vivek Ramaswamy is no stranger to social media. But he is new to selling himself on the political stage. Yet his first appearance in a national presidential TV debate was widely deemed a success, certainly by the man himself.
I think clearly the winner of this thing, just to be really honest of it. My first time ever on a debate stage, I was prepared for this to be a warm-up. The fact that we came out as victorious as we did is really an honor, something that propels me and gives me a sense of duty to see all this all the way through to a landslide in the general.
The polls following the debate did show a big upswing in his popularity, but not all political watchers think he performed well.
It was very clear that Ramaswamy doesn't quite understand the powers of the presidency, what the president can do, or even when the Constitution was written. And the other things that he said that were quite controversial was his climate change denial. Ramaswamy got a very close look and is getting a lot of attention, but not all of it's good.
That is the dream.
Those contentious views are part of his bid to attract voters away from Donald Trump, the clear leader in the GOP polls. And by sharing videos of his workout routine and his children, Mr. Ramaswamy's trying to portray himself as a younger, fitter version of the former president, at the same time as fiercely defending him.
He's almost trying to out-Trump Trump. What do you make of that strategy?
Right. In fact, Donald Trump had very nice things to say about Ramaswamy after the debate, of course, because Ramaswamy called him the greatest president in the 21st century and said that he should be pardoned for any potential crimes. This, of course, endears him to Donald Trump, who loves the adulation. He loves to be praised. And so this puts Ramaswamy in an interesting position of, if he does get to be further ahead in the polls and Trump is his main competitor, will he turn his sights against him?
Vivek Ramaswamy has an answer to that, too.
It's going to be a two-horse race between me and Donald Trump before long, and I'm the only person that can win in a landslide, and I think that's the difference.
Not everyone shares this confidence.
Unfortunately for Ramaswamy, I think that this is going to be a short-lived blip, and he may have peaked a little too early, as some people say. If we look back at 2016, for every week or two, there was a new alternative candidate to Donald Trump. At first, it was Ron DeSantis. Now it's Vivek Ramaswamy. I think we may pick up somebody else in a couple weeks.
Whether Vivek Ramaswamy can keep up this momentum or not, he's certainly shaken up this Republican field, taking many by surprise. But we're still months away from the first votes being cast, and there's a long way to go from a successful debate performance to winning the White House. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
All right, political temperatures there flaring up in the US, but is also the general weather there that is grabbing headlines. Residents in the states of Georgia and Florida, in fact, are assessing the damage left by Hurricane Idalia. Authorities are investigating one unconfirmed storm-related traffic death. The storm strengthened to a Category 3 hurricane before making a landfall. DD India's US correspondent Nick Harper reports on this.
The full force of Hurricane Idalia lashes the Gulf Coast of Florida, turning streets into rivers, swamping cities, cutting off communities. Idalia smashed into the Big Bend region of the state, bringing wind speeds of more than 200 kilometers an hour, and more troublingly, storm surges 5 meters high.
That level of storm surge is life-threatening. Do not go outside in the midst of this storm. If it's calm where you are, it may be because you are in the eye of the storm, and those conditions will change very, very quickly. So wherever you are, hunker down and don't take anything for granted here. This is a very, very powerful storm.
The hurricane knocked out power for around 500,000 people as howling winds hurled seawater inland. Idalia is the first hurricane to hit this part of the state. But Florida is no stranger to some of the strongest storms that hit North America every year. Last September, Category 5 Hurricane Ian made landfall in southwest Florida, killing 149 people and wreaking more than $110 billion in damage.
If there's anything the states need right now, I'm ready to mobilize that support of what they need. I don't think anybody can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore.
Officials deployed hundreds of rescue teams and emergency crews to the state ahead of the storm, but it's likely to be days before life returns to normal. The US government has promised extra assistance to the millions of people hit by the hurricane. But the real cost of the storm to people and properties won't become clear for some time to come, as Idalia makes its way up the east coast through Georgia and into South and North Carolina. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And a view of the hurricane from the International Space Station streamlines the perspective on the scale of its impact on Florida and Georgia. The International Space Station passed over Hurricane Idalia as the storm plowed into Florida's Big Bend region as an extremely dangerous Category 3 hurricane. Thick, white, swirling bulk of clouds could be seen in the video released by the International Space Station. The hurricane has so far forced millions of residents to evacuate or hunker down in anticipation of a life-threatening surge of tidal waters. Drawing strength from the Gulf of Mexico's warm waters, Idalia unleashed destructive winds and torrential downpour. And from here, we now take you to Europe. The Venice International Film Festival has kicked off with a star-studded lineup, including films directed by Bradley Cooper and David Fincher. But with Hollywood actors and writers currently on strike, the red carpet will be missing some of the usual stardust. Our Italy correspondent, Giles Gibson, has more on this.
Well, if you're lucky enough to be in Venice and have tickets to this year's festival, then there is a lineup that is just packed full of big-name directors from all around the world. You have Maestro, the biopic directed and starred in by Bradley Cooper, which looks at the life of the American conductor Leonard Bernstein. You've got Ferrari by the director Michael Mann, which charts the life of Enzo Ferrari, whose iconic car company, of course, still bears his name. And you've also got movies from directors such as Sofia Coppola, the Italian director Edoardo De Angelis, to name just a few of the big names that are turning up in Venice for this year's festival. However, if you are there, you're probably not going to see very many Hollywood stars hanging out at Venice's cafes and restaurants, and that's because actors are not allowed to promote movies due to the ongoing strike unless they get special dispensation from the union that represents them. Now, despite that little bit of stardust being missing from the red carpet in Venice this year, the festival's director has still said that the lineup and that this festival is going to be very positive. However, those Hollywood strikes are not the only dark cloud that's been hanging over the build-up to this year's festival in Venice. Due to some heavy rain and storms that we've seen in recent days in northern Italy, they've actually had to raise the flood barrier just outside the city of Venice, and that's after a summer when we've seen some really turbulent weather across northern Italy, and actually iconic locations such as St. Mark's Square in Venice actually having several inches of water over them. Giles Gibson in Rome reporting for DD India.
All right, so that was about the Venice International Film Festival. Up next, we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Australian schools are helping to preserve some of the country's endangered indigenous languages. Australia has some of the highest rates of language loss in the world, but efforts are underway in and around the community of Coffs Harbour, a coastal town around 500 kilometres north of Sydney, to maintain traditional knowledge and language skills to pass down to the future generations. Amid scorching summer heat, animal care centers in the U.S. state of Arizona are facing an influx of pets needing shelter, with the recent heat waves making the situation worse. A blue supermoon was spotted in different parts of the world, including India, Tokyo, Vietnam, Greece and Jerusalem on Wednesday. The moon is considered a supermoon when it reaches the closest point to the Earth. The color of the moon is not actually blue, it rather signifies 2 full moons in a single month. The next blue supermoon will not be seen until the 2030s. Up next, a short break, but on the other side of the break, still to come on DD India News Hour, final preparations are underway here in New Delhi ahead of next weekend's G20 Summit. ISRO braces up for another milestone. Pictures from moon are coming in as India set to launch mission to study the sun. Joyous festival of Raksha Bandhan, celebrating the bond of love between siblings, is being celebrated for the second day on Thursday. Watching DD India News Hour, and I'm Preeti. A quick look at the top stories we are tracking this hour again. UN sanctions in Mali come to an end on Thursday after Russia vetoed renewing of the resolution. 13 Security Council members who voted in favor condemned Moscow's move. Gabon junta has named a transitional president amid condemnation from the United Nations. In the United States, tropical storm Idalia is now moving south after hitting Florida. The final preparations are underway ahead of the upcoming G20 Summit in New Delhi. And a major upset at the US Open with Tsitsipas crashing out. India is all set to host the G20 Summit scheduled to be held in New Delhi on 9th and 10th of September. World leaders will arrive in New Delhi to attend the G20 Summit. As New Delhi gears up for the mega event, security is beefed up and public holidays have been announced in the national capital from 8th to 10th of September. Muktesh Pardeshi, the Special Secretary and the Head of Operations and Logistics for G20 and India's G20 Secretariat, said that a variety of different dishes are being prepared to showcase the regional cuisine of the country and also the street foods of India, as well as giving exposure to millets.
From the government of India, we will be offering meals at the convention center. Variety of dishes being served, but millet will find a prominent place in the menu. The chefs are working to develop different kinds of regional cuisine. The overall philosophy is that we should have exposure to street foods of India. We should have exposure to millets, and we should, the delegates should also experience different regional cuisines of India.
And speaking about the preparations for the upcoming G20 Summit, the Special Secretary stressed that India will highlight its democratic traditions, street food, artistic splendor for G20 delegates.
We have twin agenda. We showcase Indian culture, crafts and cuisine. We are going to showcase progress in the field of digital sector. We want to showcase modern face of India.
Meanwhile, Principal Secretary to the Indian Prime Minister, Dr. P.K. Mishra, chaired the 9th meeting of the G20 Coordination Committee on Wednesday. The Principal Secretary took stock of the arrangements for the G20 New Delhi Leaders Summit, including logistical, protocol, security and media-related arrangements. It was noted that the work on the ground and on site at Bharat Mandapam was proceeding satisfactorily. For the first time, a mobile app has been made for G20 called G20 India, which is now available for download both on Android and iOS. G20 delegates and members of the media will also witness Digital India firsthand through the Innovation Hub and Digital India Experiential Hub, which are being set up at the Bharat Mandapam. The India-New Zealand Business Council held its first summit in New Delhi on Wednesday. Since its inception in 2014, business leaders from both the countries have been working under the forum to enhance trade ties. The objective of the Council is to explore collaboration in different sectors and to showcase technology and innovation in these industries.
So there's a lot of happening in the construction space, in the automobile space, in the farming space. I think, but the scale could be a bit more bigger. And I think the exchange of ideas in the is key from New Zealand point of view is the technology which can tap into India scale and manifest that in a large scale. So I think these are the few areas we're doing really well at the moment. And our opportunity here coming to this delegation is to look at how we can strengthen this, how do we grow this, and how we enhance and amplify this. That's what we're trying to achieve.
New Zealand is taking a medium-term strategy with India. We know that in a world of a lot of uncertainty and low growth, India is feeling increasingly confident. It's got very high growth. It's got real momentum. And so we're trying to provide that momentum to the India-New Zealand relationship as well. We've seen a bit of that. We've seen more ministers visit each other's countries. We've seen more businesses work together. We've seen, increased sporting connections, for example. And so we hope to see that continue. Well, you PPI is pretty exciting. You know, we've seen that. We thought we were good at a few things, but actually seeing it over here is very impressive. And, you know, whether you're in a market or somewhere else, it's a revolution in the way of doing things. And the possibility that something like that could happen in New Zealand. There's other things as well that are required, though. Direct flights between our countries, we know would double the people movement quickly.
And now let's get you updates on current and future solar missions of India. Having planted its feet firmly on the moon, the Indian Space Research Organization is now headed towards the sun. ISRO will be launching India's first space-based observatory to study the sun on September 2nd from Sriharikota in the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. Now, this is for the first time that ISRO is sending out back-to-back space exploration missions. On the moon once more, co-traveler Pragyan rover of the Chandrayaan-3 mission captured Vikram lander in a snap. Indian Space Research Organization said the iconic snap was taken on Wednesday around 11 a.m. IST from about 15 meters. The data from the nav cams is being processed by Space Application Center, Ahmedabad. All right, Jessing is joining us to get us more. Jessing, India is all set for studying the sun now, and ISRO will be launching the observatory to study sun on September 2nd. Let us get more details from you about the preparations. Is the stage all set now?
Well, the preparations are well underway. The rehearsal for the launch has been completed yesterday itself. Now the 24-hour countdown is all set to begin tomorrow for the launch of the spacecraft, the Aditya L1, on the September the 2nd at 11 hours 55 minutes from the launch pad at Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota. The spacecraft will take about 4 months to reach the Lagrangian point number 1, where it is intended to be placed. It will be in a halo orbit around the Lagrangian point, which is 50 lakh kilometers away, which is 1% of the distance being there from the Earth to the Sun. To that extent only we can, with the existing technology, we can send a spacecraft, because at that point there will be no sphere of influence of gravitational pull by either the Earth or the Sun. So this is an ideal point from where we can always look at the Sun without any eclipse or shadow. Continuously we will get steady streams of crucial data to study the nature of the photosphere, the chromosphere and the corona region of the Sun.
All right, Jessing, also the Aditya mission will be studying the solar corona from a distance. How many times has this been attempted before by other countries in the world? And also with this experimentation, where will India be placed on the global page when we talk of space exploration and research?
Well, there are a handful number of countries that have attempted, and I even studied the Sun solar atmosphere in detail, including NASA's several spacecrafts, and also the European Space Agency, a collective initiative of several European countries. They have also kept their spacecrafts, their solar observatory into deep space to study the nature of the Sun, and also Japan. And several other countries are also attempting. They are making attempts, and India's attempt is the first one. It was conceptualized in 2008, but got concrete shape in 2019. Now it is all set to be sent to the Lagrangian point number 1. Yes.
All right. So after having firmly put its feet on the moon, India will now be eyeing the sun on September 2nd. Thank you, Jay Singh, for joining in with those inputs. And in fact, that detailed analysis. Up next, we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines. Announcement of the Ramon Magsaysay Award 2023 begins on Thursday. Indian surgical oncologist Dr. Ravi Kannan R has been elected as an awardee in the field of holistic healthcare and well-being. Formal award presentation ceremony of the Asia's premier prize will be held in November in the Philippines capital. In India's northeastern state of Manipur, a political delegation of Nationalist Congress Party met Manipur governor, apprising her of the ground report of the vulnerable areas in the state. The governor was requested to help the students in the relief camp who were unable to pay school fee. While continuous efforts are in place to reach out to both the Meitei and Kuki communities for bringing about an amicable solution. The number of passengers travelling on the Delhi Metro in a day has reached an all-time high. The Delhi Metro Rail Corporation recorded its highest ever count of daily passenger journeys on Monday. With 6.8 million passengers riding the metro, the numbers surpassed pre-COVID figures. A cherished festival, Raksha Bandhan, which celebrates the unbreakable bond between siblings, will continue to be celebrated today in different parts of the country. On this occasion, sisters tie colourful Rakhis around the wrist of their brothers, praying for prosperity, health and their well-being. In return, brothers pledge to protect and support their sisters and also present them with gifts. Raksha Bandhan is an auspicious Hindu festival. It falls on 2 consecutive days this year. The border population of the Himalayan frontiers of the country celebrated Raksha Bandhan with the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. Thousands of border women and girls tied Rakhis to the Jawans of the border guarding force, the ITBP, which guards India-China borders from India's Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh, covering hundreds of border villages on some Indian state borders. The local population celebrated the Indian festival of Rakhi with the Himveers, a name coined by the people to the personnel. Up next, we're heading for a short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour, Burger King faces lawsuit over misleading Whopper size. Asia Cup begins with Pakistan thrashing Nepal. Arch rivals India and Pakistan's high voltage clash scheduled on Saturday. Russia's first giant panda cub born at Moscow Zoo.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. Let's quickly get you updates from the world of business now. It was another day of gains for Wall Street on Wednesday, despite the data that suggested weaker economic growth and a slowing labour market. The S&P 500 index reached its highest in nearly 3 weeks. The S&P 500 climbed 0.39% to end the session at 4,515 points. The Nasdaq gained 0.54%, while Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.11%. From US stocks to Argentina, inflation now rapidly rising prices in Argentina is fueling anger among the locals who are already battling against triple-digit inflation. Now, Argentina is facing its highest inflation in over 3 decades, and it could climb to nearly 200% by the end of the year. Rising prices are hammering consumers, pushing up poverty and stoking voter anger ahead of October general elections. Locals fear the changing scenario can stir the memories of hyperinflation in the late 1980s. And for all the Burger King fans, do you think that Burger King's Whopper burger was a bit too small? Then probably you will be happy to know that a US district court, in fact, has said that Burger King must defend against a claim that its depiction of Whoppers on in-store menu boards mislead reasonable customers, amounting to a breach of contract. Customers accuse Burger King of portraying burgers with ingredients making it appear 35% larger and containing more than double the meat than the chain serves. You're watching DD India News Hour, and time now for sports updates. We begin with tennis first. In the US Open, Greek 7th seed Stefanos Tsitsipas crashed out of the US Open after suffering a shocking upset by world number 128 Swiss Dominic Striker. Striker secured the biggest win of his career with a thrilling 5-set victory. It was another early US Open exit for Tsitsipas after he fell in the first round last year. Tsitsipas had a chance to serve for the match while leading 5-3 in the fourth set, but Striker stepped up with a break en route to forcing a decider, which he won. Playing in his first US Open main draw, world number 128 Striker used his massive serve, booming forehand and solid net play during the grueling 4-hour encounter, in which he broke the Australian Open finalist 6 times for his first win over a top 10 player. And still with tennis, Novak Djokovic cruised past Spain's Bernabé Zapata 6-4, 6-1, 6-1 in the second round of the US Open on Wednesday as he continues his hunt for a 24th Grand Slam title. The Serbian fired off 35 winners to set up a meeting with compatriot Laslo Djere in the third round. Djokovic will return to the world number 1 spot when rankings are updated after the tournament after winning his opening match. In the women's draw, world number 1 Iga Swiatek moved into the third round, but not without a fight, taming the feisty Daria Seville, who had warned that she had the game to make the defending champion uncomfortable. After a 6-0, 6-1 rout of Sweden's Rebecca Peterson in her opening match, Swiatek did not look at ease as she was made to work for a 6-3, 6-4 win over the 322nd ranked Australian spark plug. For Swiatek, the win was another step towards defending her US Open crown and keeping the number 1 world ranking. All right, from tennis to cricket now. In Asia Cup, Pakistan thrashed Nepal by 238 runs in the opening match on Wednesday to pick up 2 points in Group A encounter. Babar Azam led from the front as he smashed 151 runs and his 19th ODI ton. Iftikhar Ahmed also hit a quick-fire century to help Pakistan post 342 runs. Shadab Khan then followed with a 4-wicket haul to bowl out Nepal for 104 runs in 23.4 overs. Pakistan will play next arch rivals India in a high-voltage clash on Saturday. Australia hammered South Africa by 111 runs in the first T20 international in Durban on Wednesday. Australian captain Mitchell Marsh led from the front as he smashed quick-fire 49-ball 92 to help post 226 runs for 6 wickets after being sent into bat. Debutant leg spinner Tanveer Sangha bagged a 4-wicket haul after receiving a late call-up when Adam Zampa fell ill. Opening batsman Reza Hendricks hit 56 for South Africa, but the hosts were bowled out for 115 runs. The England Cricket Board announced that the English women cricketers will receive equal match fee to their male counterparts. The move will come into play from Friday, with England cricket team playing the first T20 against Sri Lanka. England becomes second nation after New Zealand to equalise the salaries of both male and female cricketers. The increase in women's match fee was recommended in Independent Commission for Equity in Cricket, which found a significant pay gap existed between men and women. All right, with that, we have come to the end of this edition of News Hour. But before we go, we leave you with these pictures coming in from Prime Minister Narendra Modi celebrating Raksha Bandhan on Wednesday. He met several youngsters and interacted with them. Take a look.
Glass of milk or warm पानी।
हमने क्या खाया था?
मैं आइसक्रीम।
कोई देता है आइसक्रीम सुबह-सुबह? हाँ? तो सब राखी लेके आए हैं? किसको राखी बांधेंगे? कौन आप कौन?
जन्मी एक संतान थी, उच्च विचार शिक्षा वाली इनकी परवरिश बहुत महान थी। किसे पता था ये नन्हा बालक भारत का परचम लहराएगा, सिर्फ नरेंद्र मोदी जी से पीएम मोदी बन जाएगा। पीएम मोदी
तो और कविताएं लिखो प्रकृति के ऊपर
सर, और लिखी है।
हाँ।
भारत पर भी लिखी है।
जैसे देखिए प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना, इस पर कविता बनाओ।
जी सर।
फिर नल से जल, इस पर कविता बनाओ। जनधन अकाउंट, इस पर बनाओ, ताकि गरीब लोगों को पता चले हमारी कविता लोग बोलेंगे। अरे वाह, चंद्रयान बना दिया।
भारत हमको जान से प्यारा है, सबसे प्यारा गुलस्ता हमारा है। सदियों से भारत भूमि दुनिया की शान है। भारत माँ के चरणों में जीव कुर्बान है। भारत हमको जान से प्यारा है।
तो आप एक काम करोगे?
यस सर।
पक्का करोगे? घर में जाकर के देखो कि आपके घर में सुबह उठने के बाद आप ब्रश करते होंगे, उसके बाद दूसरे दिन सुबह तक जो भी करते हैं, उसमें कितनी चीजें विदेशी हैं, फॉरेन की हैं। अगर भारत को प्यार करते हैं तो भारत की चाहिए ना। फिर घर में लिस्ट बनाओ और मम्मी पापा से कहो, देखिए हम तो भारत माता की जय बोलते हैं, तो ये चीजें तो हम बाहर से लाते हैं, मालूम नहीं होता है हमको। के अंदर चंद्रयान के बाद क्या हुआ?
This is a very big proud moment for us that our India is the first country to land on the south pole of the moon. फैमिली के साथ हमने बैठ के बहुत ही वो एक्साइटेड फील होते हुए हमने देखा। एंड व्हेन विक्रम लैंडर लैंडेड ऑन द मून वी वर सो हैप्पी एंड सो एक्साइटेड। रोंगटे खड़े हो गए।
अच्छा, 2 सितंबर को क्या होने वाला है?
तो 2 सितंबर को इसरो आदित्य को लॉन्च करेगी।
शाबाश।
सबसे बड़ा बहुत से प्लानिट। आपकी वजह से हम चांद पे पहुंचे।
हमारी वजह से चांद पे पहुंचे, हमारे वैज्ञानिकों की वजह से पहुंचे बेटा।
हमारे स्कूल में लड्डू बांट दिया हमने। चंद्रयान 3 जब लैंड हुआ था
तो सबको लड्डू मिला था।
यस सर। आपको रक्षाबंधन की ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं।
कहाँ से हो बेटा?
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. 3 दिवस तक पंथ मांगते रघुपति सिंधु किनारे, बैठे पढ़ते रहे छंद अनुनय के प्यारे प्यारे। उत्तर में जब एक नाद भी उठा नहीं सागर से, उठी अधीर धधक पौरुष की आग राम के शर से। सच पूछो तो शर में ही बसती है दीप्ति विनय की, संधि वजन संपूज्य उसी का जिसमें शक्ति विजय की।
All right, with those smiles and a beautiful report, we end this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can also connect with us on Facebook, X, which is formerly known as Twitter, and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.